Howdy, partners, and welcome to Retro Repair Roundup, number whatever episode this is. I think it's 66. I don't know. I can't count past 5, so
welcome.
This is why we have computers to do the math for us. Anyway, thank you to everybody who stopped by tonight to watch the show. Couple quick show notes before we dig into the details. Ron is not here. He's been replaced by his clone known as Steve. And Trina wasn't feeling well, so she is not here tonight as either. We wish her better health coming up soon. She's got a tummy ache or something. She ate gas station. What was it, Steve? Gas station sushi or something. I don't know.
All you can eat gas station shrimp buffet.
Yeah, there you go.
That sounds
good.
Oh wait,
that's what's going on. So let's run through the chat and say hello to everybody who's here. We've got Steve. Steve, why are you eeping in the chat? You're here. You don't have to I already got the button that does it.
We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
That was a half hour ago. I was a different person. I was wearing different pants.
We got Ron here.
Yeah, Ron is here in spirit. His candle. We got. Speaking of candle, were you just drinking from a candle jar with water?
Look, I'm supposed to be Ron. I could as well drink his candle. Yeah, at least I'm not drinking this. So
got it. Understood.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Can I pay you to drink it? Anyway, let's say hi to everybody in the chat real quick. We got One Bit Few Dreams, Eric's Edge, Francois Revel. We've got Jack68K. Bill Martins is here from Tokyo. Hey, Bill. Curtis Boyle. And I'm sure there are other people who will be stopping in. 13 are watching right now. But as we know, that tends to kind of creep up in the first 10 minutes or so. Of course, our hosts tonight are Javier, Steve, our guest host, and me. But most importantly is this guy right below me here. This is John. Hi, John. How you doing?
Oh, hey. How's it going tonight?
Hi. Doing well. It is super awesome to have you here tonight. And knowing your eclectic mix of content on the internet and your expansive knowledge of Apricot Computers, we are going to have fun tonight, I am sure. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dig in.
Oh, me, right?
Yeah. No, Javier. Why don't you tell everybody who you are since you've been here 66 times?
Nobody cares.
Please.
Let's go to John.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll make this one simple here. My name is John. I don't really keep it too much of a secret. I live out in the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, actually. Kamloops, British Columbia. A little bit cloudy, a little bit rainy this time of year. It's like fall pretty much. But I've been working with old tech and old computers since 1997, 1998. And I really got into it once I began to work into the larger systems in 2007, starting with cheap silicon graphics systems.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes. And What Bit Fever Dreams is already seeing your MIDI stuff behind you. So, yes.
Oh, jeez. Yes.
Pre-approved for loan. Yes. Awesome sauce.
It looks like you dabble a little bit.
I work with a little bit of everything when it comes to tech. So, honestly, it comes down to cost. Sometimes you get amazing discounts on things, and it just requires a cleanup and restoration. And that's how I got so good at just rebuilding these completely trash systems. This Emacs 1000 back here, for example, that was free. It was just full of cockroaches. So, but hey, it's free. You clean it up. It works great.
Okay.
Can I pay you to take it? Rudy is here. Everything's Broken Garage. 386 is here. Hi, guys. So you basically already answered my first question when you started getting into retro computing. I'm going to add an extra question, a little bit of a flavor text before we get into tonight's topic. COVID-19 hit. Oh no, YouTube algorithm's going to say things. Blah. So did you find that your engagement in retro technology expanded or changed during that period of time?
I wouldn't think it really changed a whole lot at all. I think that mainly simply comes down to that I spend more time at my actual job as opposed to YouTube. So when this happened, it was like, okay, I can spend like 20 more minutes a day working on this, but I still had a bunch of projects. So it was almost like there wasn't many more people watching my videos when COVID happened because they were all like they had spare time. But at the same time, I didn't notice much of a difference myself committing more time to making videos.
Gotcha.
I've always been a fairly small channel.
Cool. Steve.
Yeah, so I was at VCF Midwest along with some other fine, crazy people who are both in the chat and on our stream right now, and saw your lovely setup with all the Apricot computers. So my question to you is, like, how long have you been collecting those things, and what is an Apricot computer for those of us on the wrong side of the ocean who have no experience with those things?
Well, okay, let's answer the what is an Apricot here first. So the reality is an Apricot computer was a system that was made by it was a British office business and software supplying company called Applying Computing Techniques. You'll note it's like a spiderweb logo that says ACT in it.
Oh.
They decided, for reasons I've never been able to figure out, why they called it the Apricot. Maybe because there was Acorn at the same time. Maybe they did just want to riff on Apple, even though it's not an Apple product. It looks like an IBM PC, but it's what's called an MS-DOS compatible machine. Like, if you give it like almost all the software that exists today, it won't run it, because it expects to run software designed and written for MS-DOS. All software today expects to talk to an IBM PC. It's a hardware different machine, but as a result, they tried to spice things up a little bit and make some really interesting design and hardware changes.
Cool.
Yeah, that sounds interesting, and it's curious. And I'm sure you'll get into, you know, when you collect it in different models and stuff like that.
Yes.
But it's always curious to see like those implementations of such an early era where compatibility is such like a gray terminology.
Compatibility? You mean compatibility between the old computer you had and the new one you just bought? Oh, no, you don't need that.
Well, I think the idea here is that, like, we look at IBM as the de facto standard.
Yeah.
But IBM in 1981 is a lot like how Apple is today. When IBM did something, everybody looked and followed, for better or for worse. And there's always the weird hardware limitations, like the 640 kilobyte RAM limitation. Well, Apricot machines don't follow the IBM BIOS or how IBM did the memory stack. So you can have over 700 kilobytes of RAM available, which doesn't seem like a lot now, but an extra 100K, sure, that's great.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, especially if you need all that memory.
Exactly. And that gives you all this other space. Since you don't have to work with what IBM laid out, you can make your own thing. And it ultimately came down to, and I'll loop back to this probably several times, Microsoft didn't expect you to run MS-DOS like it was an IBM PC. You licensed it from them, you wrote the OS to your hardware, and you just supplied the device drivers to DOS so that the software just talked to that instead.
Got it.
Cool.
So you started collecting these things something fairly recently, or have you always been interested in them?
I have been interested in them since about 2003, 2004, when I'm sure we've all had that moment where we've had like a fleeting glimpse of something and we don't remember what it was, like the make, the model, even if it was a computer, but you just remember this one thing as a facet in the corner of your memory. And then many years later, you see it again. I'd heard of the company before, but I didn't recognize it until like 2002, 2003. You remember the website oldcomputers.com? They had this huge photographic catalog.
Yep.
So I was going through that because it's just so beautifully laid out. And like you click on ABC, Acorn, and then this company called Apricot. Well, I seems to be familiar. And I remembered, and I have it actually here right now with me. So this is the keyboard that comes off of the Apricot Zen. And you'll notice this giant screen here. I remembered the screen and these little tiny LED illuminated buttons. And that's where I was like, ooh, this is a very fancy machine. And I've been trying now for many years to get Apricot machines into my collection. But the problem is, because they weren't PC compatible, everyone got rid of them years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, you know, I guess from a compatibility state of you know, I'm a Mac guy, but looking at it as a PC person, maybe those systems were less desirable to hang on to because as technology moved forward, it's like, well, why do I have this? You know, it's just one of these things that I have to jump through extra hoops for. This software's not going to work with it, or I need to buy different hardware accessories or whatever.
And you mentioned that like these computers they're kind of non-extant or not very popular. Are they really difficult to find now if you're looking to collect them?
If you go on to, like, I think last I checked was ebay.com and you look for Apricot Computers, there's not really much. You have to go to, like, no surprise since it's a British system, ebay.co.uk, and then you look for Apricot Computers, and then you'll find a whole bunch of systems, hardware, peripherals, and little bits and pieces. Actually, the Apricot Zen I have is a system that was my last major purchase. I got that out of the UK. That cost me a lot to ship home.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I can imagine.
And this is Joe's public service announcement. Remember, when you're shipping big, heavy items, lots and lots and lots of pool noodles. We
Yep.
call them Javier noodles.
So I got a video on how to
Let me rethink that marketing strategy. Anyway.
So yeah, my question actually was going to be that one, but I think you already answered it. Does Apricot predates Apple's brand?
No. Apricot was a transitioning phase between 1982 and 1984 where they just called their computer the Apricot and the company name was still ACT. And then around 1984 with the Apricot Portable, they decided to call themselves just Apricot Computers, and it stuck around for a fair number of years.
Wow, because me personally, as an Apple II user in the past, I would say at first glance, before knowing it, I would say it was another spawn like the pineapple, another
like an Apple clone
of
or
the
something.
Apple II.
It seems like a satirical computer company.
Yeah.
It's like Banana Junior 5000.
Yeah, there was a banana computer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my question to follow that up is we know that they came out of Britain, and one of the big things about computers from Britain is that there's a whole bunch of them and they're all weird and different. Yeah. What was the main like standout thing for Apricot in Britain in the 80s?
Well, I mean, besides the stereotypical British isms that you get of terrible design decisions, you had the mic. Like I mentioned again with this keyboard, is you have the micro screen display. It's completely programmable under MS-DOS. So it's just a TSR application. But you have two lines of text that you can program to whatever you want. You have the 6 buttons, all 6 with little LED lights, and you can program them in there. Like, I never saw anything similar to that until the Logitech G15 in 2005? That was easily 20 years later.
Yep.
So my question is, can the remnants of Apricot sue Apple for that weird touch command bar at the top of their Mac keyboards?
Maybe.
Stole the idea.
I think they would try if they could.
Yeah. So
try.
Would you say that the machine, especially for the early 80s, being a MS-DOS-like machine, was one of the big standouts? I mean, because so many of the machines from that era, they either used a custom, what I call British-inspired operating system, like Acorns had their own thing, and the ZX Spectrums had their own favorite, and the ZX81s and stuff. They had their own flavors of basic plus game programs. This machine was an MS-DOS thing. Did that help it any in the market, or?
A little bit. Now, ACT, we'll just call them Apricot here. Apricot did develop their own graphical utilities outside of letting you use GEM and later on Windows 1, so you could use the mouse with a high-resolution display. But within ACT themselves, they had a subsidiary called Pulsar Software. They already had established ties with companies such as Microsoft and Ashton Tate. So all of these major software titles that were available for the IBM PC were available on the Apricot platform. The big catch here is that the 5150 took 16 or 18 months before it left the United States and arrived in the UK, which gave them a little over a year to make sure all the software was already available on the Apricot when the IBM showed up.
Wow.
So like Microsoft Multiplan, sure. COBOL, BASIC, C, Pascal, it was all there. You could develop it in any environment you wanted. And there was no one particularly special piece of software because it was just ported easily over MS-DOS.
Gotcha. So it's almost like MS-DOS for the Apricot acted in a way that CPM did for all those weird CPM machines. Because it wasn't IBM compatible, but because it was DOS compatible, the APIs were there, the calls were there, everything was there. So porting applications and making it work was relatively trivial.
Yeah, the rules were supposed to lay out that you never talk to the hardware directly. The vendor just built device drivers that snap into DOS, and then you, as the software developer, only talk to DOS, which then meant you didn't have to deal with low-level assembly routines or graphical libraries or anything like that. You just told DOS to draw a circle, and it talked to the driver, which then talked to the video chipset to draw the circle.
That's cool. Ian Scott says, I wish I went and looked at John's table at VCF Midwest this year. Yes. Me too. I missed it, and now I'm like feeling.
I saw it, and I was baffled. It was amazing.
That was a fun table to do. That was well worth the trip.
Oh yes.
I
went like 3 times over there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really cool just seeing, because sometimes you see like 1 or 2 of these oddball machines that you've never heard of before. What I always enjoy about VCF Midwest is you see like a whole lineup of them, like every single model or every other model that they made. And so it's really cool just to see like all the different form factors. Like there was the all-in-one type one with the keyboard and the display, and there's like more traditional looking PC ones. And just like looking at that, and you know, the question I'm getting around to is like looking at all these different models. I'm curious about the expandability and add-ons for them. So I know that from browsing Wikipedia maybe an hour-ish ago, that did they still support microchannel like even after IBM ditched it, or is that like just only on some models for expandability on the Apricots?
It was up, I think, around until IBM abandoned it. Like the last major product I saw that had the Apricot name on it that shipped was the first 486 system that also shipped, which was the Apricot VXFT. Think like how the Apple network server was just like a floor standing like giant double wide server. It was the exact same thing that Apricot did. 2 power supplies, built-in battery backup. Like it has removable hot swap bays. It feels exactly like the Apple network server, but it's microchannel. And yes, you are correct, Steve. Apricot was one of the few companies that officially licensed microchannel architecture from IBM.
They must have made IBM very happy.
It was a strange turn of events, really, because, I mean, originally they were competing against IBM, and then by the end, they were working directly for them.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, companies like IBM or other companies will always try and, like, make something a standard, like, make it their thing. And IBM was like, oh, microchannel is going to be the thing. But nobody wants to pay for licensing. So everyone, like, just went off their own ways and developed their own buses and stuff like that. So I always find it interesting that, like, you know, a company will be like, no, yes, you took all the hard work out of this. I'm just going to license it from you. And here's your check.
HDMI, anyone?
Yeah.
No, we're going to do DisplayPort, which has all the same pins and all the same signaling, just in different spots with a different shaped connector. Anyway.
Ship it.
Yeah. Javier, you have a question?
Oh, hold on to. My question is, Apricot even tried their hand in portable machines, and I saw the portable machine,
Yes, you did. I mean, maybe it's better to call it a luggable, but it's the 80s, so we can understand if it requires AC power.
Yeah.
Even the Apricot...
Yeah, go ahead.
Even the Apricot Portable is... like, it's got all these weird gimmicks, like the micro screen, we had infrared peripherals, and then with the portable... it has something else. It has voice recognition, which who was doing that on a PC running DOS in 1984?
Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask you that flat screen, the flat panel, that was also new at that time, isn't it?
That was very new and supposedly very expensive. Recalling off the top of my head, which I think is almost the same as reading off Wikipedia, there were complaints originally from Apricot that the display controller and chipset for the LCD was too slow, so they decided to spin their own because they had that kind of money, obviously, in 83, 84.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah, I always find it interesting, like, them pushing envelope, like these companies pushing the envelope of like, oh, we're gonna try this form factor, we're gonna try, you know, this thingamajig that we're gonna do, or let's just throw it out the wall and see what sticks and what could be profitable.
Yeah,
for
see
us.
what sticks. Yeah.
I think that that's one of my most favorite things about getting into retro computers, and I think all of us share this, is just like trying to figure out what oddball thing was going on over the wall, because like, you know, you're used to, let's say, your Macs or you're into your Commodores or whatever, but like, what was the other people on the other side of the fence doing? What were they trying to make work?
Well, it was like with the Sharp and the X68000. We were all using manual eject 5 1/4 inch floppy drives, and they had gone and developed this whole absurd electronic eject mechanism for their 5 1/4 inch drives. I don't think, did we ever have anything here? IBM had one drive. Okay, yes. IBM had one drive that was available like that. But other than that, nobody used that because it was so over-designed.
Yeah.
Brain reset. My brain stopped there for a second. I just kind of stroked out there for a minute. Yeah, reset the PRAM there. Speaking of PRAM, so one of the things that plagues old computers, especially, you know, for the collector trying to get them back up and running again, are things like capacitor bombs, battery bombs, stuff like that. Are those REFA caps would be another thing, power supply issues, just things of that nature that just they age out and you have to be aware of. Are there things that like that you have to be aware of when getting an Apricot to restore it to operation?
To stay specifically on power supplies and like delivering power, REFA caps are a problem with all of the Apricot machines because they use Aztec supplies, which are famous for also using REFAs as well.
Yeah.
Recapping them, there's not really anything weird or oddball of the caps they go into them. I've changed them before. Even when you pull them out, they start to smell like fish, so they have to be done.
Yeah.
But for batteries, however, so because there was wireless peripherals, they obviously contain AA cells, and yes, those will leak.
Yeah.
But what that also means is that the battery damage is typically limited to just the keyboard and mouse peripherals. There's no batteries inside the machine until you got to, say, the Apricot Zen, which has 2 batteries inside of it.
Oh no.
There's a rechargeable 3.6 volt, which, depending on which revision you have, either sits in the CPU area and basically ruins the system, or it lives off on the other far corner of the machine where there's actually nothing populating the board, so it's fairly inert. It makes a mess, but it doesn't cause as much damage. And 2 AA's, which are actually the ones that keep the CMOS alive.
Gotcha. Wow. And on the peripherals, if you have these damaged peripherals, are there ways to restore them? Do they get so damaged that you can't restore them, or do you have to like use third-party weird adapter doodles to make like an IBM keyboard work on the Apricot?
At this point, I've yet to actually run across one of the peripherals which had battery damage so bad that you couldn't reuse the peripherals. This also may just simply come down to I've only worked with like a half dozen keyboards and trackballs in total. So there may very well be like one sitting on shelves somewhere which are just beyond repair. I've yet to see one.
Gotcha. Cool. So your collection, which many of us got to see, or at least see part of it at VCF Midwest. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it? And I don't know, what's your favorite machine? What's your least favorite machine? What's the one everybody's going to recognize? What's the hidden gem?
What did you break your back on recently?
It just on apricots in general? Well, that was a hell of a lift. It's difficult to say because there's only 5 machines I have. Like, I love the Zen. The Zen was their 286 system. It has it brought back the micro screen display. You could get a white phosphor screen. Officially from Apricot, you could get Windows 103 installed, or the early builds of Gem, which don't have the whole pre-Apple lawsuit GUI on it. So that looks pretty nice on it. And it's bundled away with a telephone accessory that kind of slides up and clips onto the keyboard because it's designed to be an office computer. So, of course, you have a telephone that can attach to it. You can have a telephone directory. The micro screen keys let you go between each position on there, like choose people on the list and manage it. It's a really neat system once you get it up and running. I mean, it's just the pitfalls you have to deal with, which is those 2 batteries. That being said, the most difficult machine to work with so far has been my Apricot Portable, because it's just problem after problem after problem. Thankfully, not related to the LCD too much.
Do the LCDs in that suffer from vinegar syndrome? Have you seen?
I have not seen one suffer from vinegar syndrome. I don't know if that's because they are good screens or if it's because they tend to be stored in environments which are cooler, damper. I wouldn't necessarily say that, like we've seen some of the absolutely roached screens that came out of like Japanese import sites and like our trips to Tokyo. And you think of the UK and you don't think of like scorching hot days and extreme humidity.
Right.
You think of like cold cellars and rainy days.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And that kind of tends to come with the territory of being in the UK. It's a it's a milder climate. So
yes.
Yeah.
Now, the follow-up question, just because we were talking about DOS, and I'm mostly a Mac guy, so my brain is in the other neck of the woods when it comes to this sort of stuff. But was there, maybe I missed it, was there a particular appeal of these systems to you, or was it just the form factor, or was it like sort of that, hey, it's quasi-compatible with early stuff like that? Or, I'm just curious, like where this sickness came from, if we could find a cure for it.
It's the form factor.
Came from.
It's absolutely the form factor. There's no other machines out there. Like you think of PC clones or people trying to compete against the PC, they were all basically the exact same looking and styling. Mm-hmm. And then along comes ACT Apricot with these just wild designs that may not have actually been fully practical or functional, but visually they're amazing systems.
Nice. Yeah.
That's one of the things I was, that's what stood out to me at the show was just like how different these are. I'm going to try and share one on my screen, Joe, so it might ask you to push the thing in a second.
I have to click buttons and do things. I'm not good at this, Steve.
If I find it, there we go. So hopefully that will show. There it is. So this was just a small sliver of your setup there at Midwest. But that is what I was walking by these, because look, there's thousands of machines on display, and a lot of them look fairly similar. I'm walking by, I'm like, wait, what the hell? And that's my friend James, who was from the UK, pointing out, oh, my mom had one of these systems back in the day at work or whatever. And I'm like, these are cool.
I had a fair number of people from Europe and visiting from the UK who recognized the machines right off the bat.
Nice.
Like it was one of those, like, again, like IBM was so late to the game over there. Sure, they picked up momentum, but a lot of people were buying these machines either for the office or for home. So they remember them from their childhood. Actually, in this picture here, for everyone who's watching, the charcoal gray system on the left is called the Apricot PCXI. So that's a 10 megabyte hard drive, and that's a Sony 3.5-inch floppy drive in 1983. So we're talking before the Macintosh.
Wow.
The machine on the left there is called the Apricot F1. No hard drive, but it has the same 3.5-inch floppy drive, but it's just, well, it's not wide, it's long. It's almost 2 feet long.
Wow.
You could really push that CRT back.
Man.
I'm looking at the F1 too, and it reminds me of some of those all-in-one or all-in-one like IBM PC Mac clone things that IBM did, like the PS1 systems. I went over here to point over my shoulder to point at it, but then I realized everything's in the new room, so I can't point at it.
Not to dig up Computer Reset too much, it reminds me of that one IBM Executive PC.
Oh, yes. It does have that look to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the look on the gray box of the one on the left. It's so like, what did you say, 83? That's looks,
1983.
Wow, that looks so like mid-90s futuristic. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Apple was announcing the Macintosh at the Super Bowl. You could go out and buy one of these systems.
Wow.
Wow. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I loved seeing that in person, and if that show was like an extra day, I probably would be able to absorb more of them. But really, really just cool to see all of those on display. Again, like we were saying, sometimes you see one or two. It's cool to see the whole lineup and be like, oh. So I mean, Apricot is obviously not around anymore. But
No.
if they were around, do you think they would still be like making desktops and things like that, or do you think they would be more of like a consumer electronic type spin on these things?
Well, it's funny you say that. So, like, the truth is, like, Apricot as a hardware entity broke up in the 90s, but there was a brief period in the late 2010s where someone bought up the name and was selling Apricot computers again. But of course, they were just low-cost netbooks and laptops. Think like how Packard Bell. We remember Packard Bell here in North America. Their machines were okay. I'm going to be the one that's controversial and say that their Windows 95 machines were fine. But later on, you would get Packard Bell TVs and monitors and all this stuff. But it was always in the United Kingdom because that's where Packard Bell ran back to, or at least the name ran back to after they were shooed out of North America with their terrible machines.
It's okay. You could dump on the PC stuff. I'm a Mac guy, so I'm just gonna be like, they're all crap. Yeah.
Boo PC. Anyway. Yes, that's cool. Brain reset.
Joe, we gotta fix that interrupt on loop on your
dude. I have spurious interrupt. See, here's the thing. Quick aside, caused by the thing I'm going to talk about in the aside. So I have ADHD, which I equate to in the computer world as having spurious interrupts. Yeah, it's just like what? Huh? What?
Where am I?
Seriously, no. I was actually looking at something on the internet when you got my attention. My next question would be, aside from your Apricot computers, I presume you have, and looking over your shoulder, I can see other machines. What are some of your favorite non-Apricot machines?
You need to make him big. We
like
need to see
that gigantic Wang.
Oh, this thing over here you're talking about.
Yeah, it looks like a Wang to me.
Just out of view here, this is an IBM System 23 Data Master. So
gotcha.
This was the 1 month before the IBM 5150. IBM came out with this. It's like a weird alternate universe where IBM was developing an office computer, but had no idea what an open concept was. Like we think of like the industry standard architecture and the Intel 8088. And this is like the Intel 8050 and like some weird distorted mutated version of the Isobus. It has dual 8-inch floppy disks, and this was a terrible financial investment I've made, but at the same time, there was an obligation for me.
Those are the best.
Oh man, I have countless versions of that.
Yes. So, and I also see you've got. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Keep going.
No. I was just gonna say it looks like you could fit a pretty good sized waffle in those slots there.
Yeah. And Steve knows about waffles.
Yeah.
Oh God, there's syrup in all the discs.
That's an inside joke, John. Don't worry about it. So that thing must weigh 200 pounds. Yes. How much does it actually weigh?
I think it weighs like 70 or 80 pounds. Like this is one of those things. Like it's kind of difficult to get it around the corner here that you can't see, but I just kind of like pushed it onto a cart and just kind of pushed it around because it's really heavy. It is like 90 to 110 pounds.
Yeah, like Eric says, an Apple III.
Mm-hmm,
yeah. It's 2 pounds of computer and 80 pounds of cast aluminum.
Both anchor,
which is saying something because aluminum is light. Cool. And I see you got a lot of MIDI stuff there over your left shoulder.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit because we have One Bit Fever Dreams, and he is like a huge MIDI guy, so he's going to want to hear all about that.
So, admittedly, I am not a professional musician. But I've always gone by the words of you don't need musical talent to make great music when it comes to MIDI. So this is all like it's not cheap for anyone to go out and buy a DX7 or an Emax 1000. Mm-hmm. But for many years of my life, I worked in e-waste recycling. So you had stuff like this come in. And honestly, it just simply came down to I only care about the weight of this as scrap material because we don't resell it. So I ended up with like all these synthesizers, the Atari 520, the notator, the dongles, and all of that. And it was at like...
You said dongle. Sorry.
At rock bottom prices. And then you get to experiment with this stuff. Like, I can on and off, like, come in here and I can, like, put on the headphones and play with, try and do multi-channel and see what I can come up with. Yeah. I can't say I've made anything that's won me an award, obviously, but it's still nice to be able to do that.
Ataris are the best for MIDI.
I see something over your I believe it would be your left shoulder that's like blue and white above the keyboard. What is that?
Ooh, so that is the front panel. Pardon me for a second. That is
because if it's what I think it is, I'm extremely jealous.
That is the front panel off the General Eclipse S 130.
Nice.
Be
So,
still in my heart. I
for the
love the
record-
data generals. I
For the
love those
record,
things.
for anyone watching this, there was no data generals harmed in the acquisition of this front panel. This was purchased from somebody who had long since recycled the chassis. I did receive the boards out of the cabinet, and I actually gave that to another friend of mine out east, and he used that to fix his machine, but he didn't need the front panel. So I kept it, and I've gone and mounted it onto a wooden board here and just kind of kept the wiring sticking out. So kind of like with the Pi P11, if there ever comes a chance to adapt it to an actual like Raspberry Pi or virtualized system, you can just plug it into the front panel.
Joe is happy with this.
Yeah.
This pleases the Joe.
I love the data general Novas and Eclipses. My dad ran an auto parts store from like 1975 until he retired in like 2011. He just forever. But back when I was a kid, they ran the store. Each store had a data general. I think they had an Eclipse, but I call the Novas. But the big blue and white, those with the dasher terminals, those ooze 1970s mainframe. I love them to absolute death. I love those things. And so when I saw that over your shoulder, I'm like, yes, give.
So I didn't really see much of that in my lifetime, or much more. I think I've seen the odd VT100, but here in Canada, we have a retail chain called Canadian Tire, and we used twin axe terminals. So that was all like the back end of that was like System 36, System 38, and then later AS400 stuff. So I got into IBM mid-range fairly early on because that was my first real exposure to those systems, was having to do inventory control and that through those terminals.
Yes.
So like
your fellow Canadians are shouting out in the chat, woot woot Canadian Tire. Yes.
Yeah, for sure, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need tires? We got tires. Oh, do you need some feed for your cows? We got that too. So cool beans. Before we move on to questions from viewers, which I have at least two things. Here's another one that just came up. BG, have a Hyperion. Before we get to questions from
sorry, Joe.
What, Steve? I was talking over you. What?
No, I was gonna buy you time by asking a question.
Go ahead and ask a question.
Okay. So obviously you should subscribe to John's channel, CelGenStudios. Amazing channel, by the way. I want to know, were any fenders damaged in the making of that poor hi-fi that you dragged behind the car in that one episode you did a few months ago? That was great.
Yes. For those who weren't watching, I got fed up with this terrible old stereo, so I just kind of put a chain around it or a cable, tied it to the back of my car, and just floored it, and then took off. Great. And yes, as like the cable's tightening up, there's this mental thought in my head. You know, what if this thing comes flying back and takes out my window? It didn't, but no fenders were damaged in the making of that. We've all seen fail videos where someone's done that and it just breaks the back window.
Yeah, because you filmed it from a certain angle where all the stuff, it was being pulled, and I'm like, did it break the other thing?
Let me put it to you this way: if that had broken my back window, you would have never have seen it.
I love it. Yeah, because I remember that video was probably earlier this year.
It was October of last year, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then because I remember you had. I mean, first off, your channel is great. I love the variety of content that you have, because it's just like, oh, we're gonna play around with this cool camera I like, or oh, we're gonna just like drag this stereo behind the car.
There's so much stuff. I can talk about one thing one week and one thing the other. This is great if you have ADHD, because you don't need to be hyper focused on one thing all the time. You can just grab a thing and say, I want to talk about a word processor this week.
Yes.
Yeah. Like that the thing I got the discs for, the Digimax, which I still have to give you the discs. I should have brought them to Midwest with me.
Well, I'd say they're available in the Internet Archive, but right now, okay.
I have them on my hard drive. But that was a really cool thing, and I'm so glad that you got that working, because that was like so cool how you demonstrated that.
That was a fun experience. That was interesting discovering the hardware requirements to make it work. And I'd also like to thank Adrian Black of Adrian's Digital Basement for supplying me with the Digimax at all.
Yeah.
I'm looking back through your catalog, and as a fan of both old cars and AMCs and electronics, seeing your mixture of things where you cross those two interests it gives me weird feelings in my heart.
Fuzzy.
I do struggle at times trying not to make the channel just an automotive channel. So I try and mix the technology in as well. Yeah. Like instead of just constantly bragging about the car, let's talk about this cool piece of technology or how to repair this piece of technology. Classic cars are a lot of like that as make, do, and mend, but for rebuilding them, it seems that there's not much out there for a lot of these stranger, more niche things, especially once you exit out of the world of muscle cars, things get difficult to source. And why not try and figure out how to fix it by taking it apart even?
We knew Ryan was going to get excited. Yeah.
Our friend Ryan here, you may know him of Everything Broken Garage. He's a fellow Canadian. He's from way out east, don't you know? He's a newfie. And he does the same thing. He does cars and computers. So it's the same thing.
A weird intersection.
That's a weird Canadian thing, I think.
Yeah, it's a weird Canadian thing. We need to have the cars work, and we like to play with the computers.
Well, if we don't have working cars, we can't go and pick up our weird hauls of junk.
Exactly.
There you go.
Big good point.
I think this is a good spot to get into some of the wonderful questions that we have from our viewers in the chat. I have 3 big ones that I've noted as we're going, but if anybody has any other questions they want to pop in the chat, go ahead and dump those in there now so we can touch it away. The first question was from our friend One Bit Fever Dreams from Michael. He is another Canadian. He's in Montreal. And he asks, did Apricot run Zone 66 without a struggle to squeeze more conventional memory?
I don't actually know. I think it just simply comes down to the BIOS mapping. And even that one there, I think the BIOS source code is available in Apricot's technical documentation, which is somewhere on the Internet Archive. Again, it's currently not available. They were pretty good about being descriptive about stuff like that and how the programming arrangement of memory and hardware worked. But I don't know off the top of my head if they were what they did with Zone 66.
Gotcha. I do want to mention Mike's Mess's comment of AMC being the best car company ever. That's because they used 85% GM parts. So anyway, moving on. Anyway, Everything is Broken Garage. Of course, he's going to have several questions for you. He's asking if you, and you may have touched on this, but I wanted to get into detail as well. Have you rewired your Apricots specifically for 110, or do you use like a transformer and just plug them in? How do you make those work over there in the North Americans?
It's a little bit of a mix of both. So there's a website. It's an older one called actapricot.com. I think it might be .org. And he talks about with those Aztec power supplies, they are jumperable inside of them. You can switch between 110 and 220 volt. Yeah. So all of my systems have been converted over to 110 if possible, with the exception of the monochrome display for my Apricot Zen is hardwired and designed specifically for 220, 230. For that one there, I know Adrian has a wonderful write-up on how to modify the DC boost circuit, I believe, to make that just to kind of compensate for the higher voltage. But I actually, even for VCF Midwest, I brought along a step-up transformer. I just plug that in there and everything's labeled like 230 volt only. Don't plug into anything else. And that's been working fine for me, really.
That's good.
To know. Yeah, it's nice when there are those solutions so you don't have to have like a separate adapter for every single system.
Yeah. I recognize that with the Aztec power supplies being on the Apple II side. Like all of those original Apple IIs were pretty much Aztecs, and you look inside, it would just have a wire jumper that would like added the extra loop of transformer in there. So Everything Broken Garage, everything is broken. See, I'm sorry, Ryan. Alan, Ryan asks, do you have a Hyperion? I don't know what that means, but I'm asking the question.
The Dynalogic Hyperion, I'm assuming he's referring to, is a Canadian system. It was an all-in-one. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. There was a first that was involved with it. It is not an IBM PC compatible system. It had its own weird quirks to it. I owned a Dynalogic Hyperion probably 20 years ago. I haven't owned one since. I know multiple people who have them, but the floppy drives on them are known to be kind of unreliable. And even when I was 20 years younger, I don't want to think about that too much. It wasn't a fun machine to work with because just getting discs to boot with it, I couldn't do it.
Unreliable how? Like, was it a mechanism issue or just a read issue?
I think it was just a reading issue. I felt like mine was chewing up floppy disks on a regular basis.
Yeah.
That could very well also be. Again, this is what happens when you're getting like discarded electronics, is that sometimes they're kind of rough. And at that time, I didn't think to clean the heads on them. So it could just been that drive was just heads that were so badly plugged, it was eating every disk you gave it.
Yeah.
Cool. Steve, did you type in a couple random questions there?
Yeah, of course I did. So
You want to ask
since we have a bit of an audience here, I'll ask the first question, let you respond, then I'll ask another one. Is there anything like a specific part or a little item or something that you're like currently looking for, on the hunt for to complete something, or something broke and you're trying to find it? I know you have some things on your way, which will be in my next question, but just curious if there's anything top of mind that you're like, I need this one thing and I can't find it.
For the Apricot, right? If specifically for Apricots or for my computers in general? Ooh,
Just
my big
project.
My big project right now is a mini computer from a company called 4-Phase Systems. If you've never heard of them, that's fine. Apple's offices live on top of their old headquarters. That is a machine where finding information about it has been almost impossible. The biggest issue, even for finding like the boards needed to make the machines, is that they're so gold rich. Almost all of the boards have long since been recycled. So at this point here, I'm just desperate, and just anything that's related to this company, which was acquired by Motorola in 1982, would be interesting, if not essential to archive, because there is nothing left.
I will.
Oh wow.
I will look into
Lots
that.
of big
I might
names.
know a friend that knows a friend.
Yeah, no, you have Noise, you have Lee Boycell in there. They were doing a lot of firsts. I was actually talking to Ken Schriff about this at VCF West, and the architecture that they were doing behind their chip manufacturing was kind of dated by the late 1970s. It was still providing a system, and the platform itself just proves itself to be weirdly ahead of the curve, like using semiconductor non-core memory, like it was using multiple terminals and timeshare. It was all these strange things that we saw everywhere else in the industry, and we didn't know that in like 1971 it was available as one system.
Cool. It's almost like, it sounds to me like that would be, if we could find like one really good resource that has schematics, we could rebuild these things or something. We can redesign them so that they're usable, or we use the schematic to make an emulator or something.
There is so every time I get a new board in, and even with the system I have right now, I've been photographing all of the boards front and back and up, and having them sent to a place called bitsavers.org. It's a giant repository of documentation and photographs. At the same time, there is a museum that has been assisting me down in Texas called MITA. And they've supplied me with a large number of schematics for the system. They're not complete, mind you, but it gives you a much better idea of exactly how the system worked with all of these chips that 4-Phase designed that they never released data sheets for because they never meant to sell them commercially.
Wow.
Like even the CPU in that system is their own design. They weren't doing anything from Intel or AMD or really anyone. Like this was all their own thing.
Wow.
That's challenging. Your resources are limited severely.
Well, it's fun. One of the things I always like to show off about it is that there is more Apple Ones in the world than there are 4-Phase machines known to still exist.
Wow. That's nuts.
Do you know of any museums that at least have one of these machines?
MITA is the only museum that I'm aware has more than one in their collection. The machine I own was supposed to go to the Living Computer Museum. And that would have been it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that just closed down last year or the year before.
Closed down.
And they just didn't open.
Effectively, it closed down in 2020, but about a month ago, there was the big auction where, unfortunately, we watched it get broken up and sold.
Yeah.
It was a dark day for a lot of people. I know former employees who worked there, and it was sad to see their work go.
Yeah, I mean that's really the sad part of it is you realize, you know, a museum is a place where all this stuff could be under one roof and you know, at least the pieces can be kept together, and you know, it's a home for this stuff. And to see that stuff split off, I mean on the one side it's better than seeing it all tossed, but on the other side it's like, who knows what's going to happen to this stuff. Even with the best intentions of shipping and everything, these one of a kind things can get mangled or destroyed. And it's also like, unless these people that buying it are going to put it in like their own collection to display and invite folks over, it's like that stuff may never be seen again.
Exactly, will be lost.
It's one of the reasons I try and that's one of the reasons my channel seems to be a lot of show and tell, as well as why I contribute so much to try and scanning the documentation, like all of these books behind me, photographs of my 4-phase boards or other items I have, is that there's other collectors out there. I'll mention Bob Rosenblum or Bruce Damer, actually down in California, with their extensive collections. They've moved them on now to other museums for safekeeping, but that there was for just to publicize it and archive and document the weird little things that he had in his collection. Because I really don't want to use LGR as an example here. You can have some pretty amazing stuff in your basement, and all it takes is one storm to wipe out things.
Oh, sure.
Well, LGR, and there's other people that happened that, you know, like Tony Diaz, that he just died suddenly, and then all his stuff got kind of thrown away.
That's something I've seen as well, as people where they either they go from old age or there's an accident. There's nothing to say. What do you do with this garage full of old computers? I don't know. Call the junk caller.
And some people, exactly. Some people don't leave any information or things to do with them, and they just give them away or throw them out. And that's the tragedy of that. Yeah,
and what Eric is saying here, everyone who's a retro electronic or computer person has that same feeling. Like, what would you do if like a huge like museum like the Louvre was just sold off to the highest bidder and everything was split up? It's like, this stuff right now, you know, it may not seem vitally important to either where we are as a humanity or electronic industries or this or that, but every bit and piece tells a story. And I think that's why a lot of us are attracted to this stuff, is to learn more about it, to be curious about how we got from this to this, or just a weird offshoot that happened. And I think it's sad to see like that stuff being split up. I mean, in a perfect world, that museum would have been open again, you could visit it and stuff like that. But unfortunately, to do that, it's not cheap. So, yeah. Well, speaking of labors of love, I
see this question coming, and I'm laughing at it. I'm laughing. I'm pre-laughing at this question.
The field of dreams.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter a few days ago that you bought a 1979 Magnavox Laserdisc player.
Oh, the Magnavision 8000.
Yes. First off, I'm super jealous because like 10 years ago, somebody was moving and they posted one on Craigslist, and I've responded. They're like, "Yeah, I'll get back to you." Never heard from it again. And I'm a weird Laserdisc guy. Not that I would use the damn thing, but it would look pretty and collect dust in my basement. So, you know, first off, I'm super jealous, but also I want to know, like, why do you want so much pain in your life?
This is one of the few times where I don't mind owning a Laserdisc player, which doesn't work. The 8000s, for those who don't know. So when the format launched, it was called DiscoVision, and this was in late 1978. So it was like December 1978. These were the first consumer players available, period. There was nothing before them. They are... To bring the cost down from their industrial models, there was a lot of cutting corners, a lot more adding plastic, and a lot more. We didn't fully yet know how exactly to handle an optical disc media in the house. So there was a little bit too much cost cuttings. And so there was examples of systems where most of it was assembled in Europe It was shipped over to the United States for final assembly in kit form, and then aligned optically and shipped out to the retailers. And when the retailers got them, they had already gone out of alignment.
Wow.
Like they were not well-built systems.
Just look how beautiful it is, though. It even
is
looks like
huge.
it says CelGen on it. There's a big C.
So you see that? So the giant circle there, that's supposed to be a clear piece of plexiglass. But just before the system went to market, the legislation and rules on what you can do with laser radiation said you can't do that. So they had to replace it with a piece of black plastic. So that's why that's there.
I hope you take that plastic out. And
I might. So this is the consumer model here. I have the industrial model, which this was supposed to work alongside as a complement. It was made by a company, you may have heard of them, called Pioneer, and the system was called the PR7820. That one has a full clear window over the disc.
Oh, that's
but
cool.
when you look down on it, there's no clamp on it. And the reason there's no clamp is because the whole disc assembly, rather than the laser moving over the top of the disc or underneath the disc itself moves over a fixed laser. So when you load it up, it looks amazing.
That's so cool.
It has also the most monstrous remote control I've ever seen.
The size of your head, I bet. Yeah.
Chunk control.
Well, I think you're used to like one or two little infrared
here's my
emitters. This
remote.
has 4.
Yeah.
Show.
But no, I am planning on doing a video on all of this at one point. Actually, it's funny. Kind of as a follow-up, there's also Techmoan did a video on the CRV disc system, and I have one myself.
Oh, nice.
And I also have the data version of the same media style.
Oh, cool.
So I want to do both of those in a video just to say, like, here's CRV disc, but you've never seen a worm disc this big. And it is like it's a giant 12-inch cartridge.
Do you have does your equipment work enough to like write a signal to it or anything like that? Or
It doesn't have I don't have the software driver that lets it handle it. Like if you plug it into a Mac or you plug it into a PC, it sees it as a Sony worm optical device, but it won't let you do anything with it as a disc.
Ah, damn. That's so cool though. That's awesome.
Cool.
I'm just a big laser junkie, so just geeking
Yeah.
out. So when I saw you got that, I'm like,
Oh no! I saw that. I was talking to someone else, and it had one of those terrible I have access to eBay moments. So I was like, I haven't looked this up in a while. Oh, there's one available. Oh, it's in Canada, sold. Because every single time I've seen them, they're in the United States. And for you folks who don't deal with cross-border shipping anything to Canada from the United States is prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like those.
If it's bigger than an iPhone and doesn't have a battery, yeah.
Yeah,
there was a keyboard for one of my Silicon graphics systems. I bought it from a guy in Snohomish, Washington, which is just across the border. It's 8 hours away. It was $75 for the keyboard. It was $150 for shipping. It was cheaper for me to drive down and pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I remember like a year or so ago when I got those Digimax discs for you. The shipping to Canada, like if you would to buy those, were like $80 or something ridiculous.
It's absurd. And that was just for like a small mailer.
Yeah, it was like this big.
Yeah.
2 floppies in it and some manuals. Like, what the hell?
Yep.
Like I remember when it was a lot cheaper to move stuff across the border, but that was 20 years ago now.
Yeah. Trina's always giving us gruff because like she'll mail us stuff and be like, "Oh, it's so cheap," it's like. But I remember mailing her one piece of paper with like cardboard, and it was like $30.
Yep. If it's not a standard box, it's under a certain weight. Like I sell a lot of stuff internationally, and I can usually get stuff up to Canada for about $10 US.
Yeah.
But it can only really be about this big, and
It's like a flat rate cube.
Yeah, and it's less than like 8 ounces. If it's anything bigger than that, if it's the size of like a book or no,
$1 million.
Yep, instant $28. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think this is a good point to start by saying it was super awesome hearing about your collection and your Apricot computers. But now we get to talk about other cool things. And these other cool things, this is the recent Gets segment of Retro Repair Roundup, where we get to talk about the cool new thing that we want to show off that we got recently. And we are going to, if you're ready, John, start with John and say, hey, John, what's the cool recent new thing that you got?
Well, I think Steve kind of, I won't say spoiled the fun here, but I already took out my latest acquisition, which was that Magnavision player. That was a fun acquisition that I've been keeping an eye on now for about 5 years. So that's one I'm going to be curious to see, but that also involved me having to like message the seller and say, you don't have the shipping screw, grab like a straw or a stick and like shove it down this hole and tape over it so it doesn't fall out, so the laser transport doesn't fall out. But like that is my latest acquisition so far. So I'm excited to work on that and see exactly how beat up it's going to end up. But
sorry, I spoiled your fun.
Oh, don't worry about it.
What's another recent acquisition?
Ooh. Oh, geez. I can't think of, what did I grab? So there was the Interim Computer Festival about 2 weeks ago, and coming out of that one was there anything fun that I got? I got rid of a number of odds and ends. I think that was it. Most of my latest acquisitions all came from VCF Midwest this year.
Yes.
And there was this monitor. It's called the Philips Desk Escape. And you look at it and it's like it's just a standard LCD monitor, DVI, whatever about it. But then you grab the monitor and you actually pull it off of a dock. It's a Windows CE tablet with a built-in client for Windows Remote Desktop. So the idea is that it's actually like an 802.11b Wi-Fi device, and then you can go around the house and you can just log into your computer remotely.
That's awesome.
And I have the full box system.
Oh, that is amazing.
I'm jealous of Javier right now. Anyway.
I want one of those just to drag around like you're on site. All right, let me fix your computer here.
That's my exercise.
Yeah. Speaking of exercise, Javier, what's your recent?
Hello. I just dragged this big thing. This is my latest acquisition.
Profile.
And I have another one that I don't have it here, but this is beautiful profile. I haven't tested it, so I need to test it. But this is for my Apple III. I finally have it. I have the card for it.
Enjoy your refit caps.
Yeah. So finally, you can compute with your Apple III at the same speed as a floppy drive, but with slightly more capacity.
Yeah. Let's see if it doesn't break or if it works.
Yeah.
It's that wonderful sound when you first spin it up and it sounds like a bench grinder.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember using one for the first time, and I was trying to get it up and running, and I'm like, is it supposed to sound like that? My friend's like, yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
like yeah.
That was
they
Mike
have not aged
chat.
well at all.
Yep.
Everything Broken Garage asks, can you Blue SCSI it? And the answer is no, because it's its own weird proprietary parallel format. Yeah.
That was my first question.
I mean, technically, you could rip out the guts and put SCSI in it and make it a SCSI drive, but then you couldn't use it with Lisa or the Apple III. Like,
wait, Joe, you're saying there's not enough market for you to reverse engineer some weird cockamamie SCSI solution for the Apple III?
Shut up, you! I have plans. Shh, quiet.
Well, I mean, if you reverse engineer the profile for parallel, what could you do with the Lisa with the same emulator?
Ooh, the thing that everybody's already done, and there's already GitHub projects out there you can just buy and plug in. That when I plugged into my Lisa last week, I broke the power supply in my Lisa.
Oh no.
Anyway. Yeah.
Anyway, Steve.
Oh yeah.
Steve gets toys.
Speaking as
did you have to run downstairs and pick up your toy? That's why you had to leave.
I had to get my toy. I left it downstairs. It's cold and abused. Speaking of eBay is a dangerous thing, I picked up this weird ass thing, and this is a multi-talk adapter, and it's just like a box the size of a hard drive. And so it has an Apple Talk connector on the back, and then 3 serial cables. And the idea is that you could share your non-Apple Talk items using this big ass box and make it part of your Apple Talk network.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I need the software for this, which doesn't seem to be archived anywhere. So if anybody has any recollection of what the hell this stupid thing is, or you have a document or a manual or anything, please tell me. because
So
I want to play with it.
Like if you had an image writer that did not have the Apple Talk board, you could use that to Apple Talk it.
Theoretically, here's a magazine scan. Let me open it up for a second. Theoretically, that's what you're supposed to do. The only picture I saw of it online recently was showing you how like sort of like the whatchamacallit, the like your network topology or whatever of how that would be. So here, let me click the little button, and I lost my window because I'm an idiot and I'm stalling for time, and now I'm pushing it. And now I have to click it again. Here we go. So this is the ad that was in, I think, Macworld from '87 or whatever. And so you can sort of see like it could be like for a modem, or I guess they sold scanners too. But I believe this was discontinued pretty quickly. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. And I think it's like System 6 only. And I think there was an Apple Tech note I saw from like 88 or 89 that's like, this product has been discontinued, no longer supported by blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think it's neat. So I always like these weird thingamajigs. And, you know, if it's Apple and Apple Talk related and has a printer connection to it, me, I'm going to buy it because I'm an idiot. So yeah, that's my weird get.
Neat. Joe likes.
Joe.
Oh, is it my turn now? Hi, everybody. I'm Joe. Hi, I'm Joe, and I'm an angry. I play an angry man on the internet. Yeah. Here, that deserves a button. We'll press that button. Sure. Why not? Anyway, so recent gets. So I have two recent gets. One of which I'm going to show. The other one I think I'm going to reserve for when it actually arrives, but I may give some hints on it. So my first recent, my recent get is, let me see. We're going to do this. So my recent get is this wonderful thing on the far left. Also the one in the middle that I got, but it's the one on the far left. It's a Sovol, it's a butter factory. What? It's a Sovol SV08. It is a large format printer. It's like 350 by 350, which is the perfect size for printing large items. Or, you know, if I wanted to, I could print like huge numbers of individual items. As you can tell, all my printers are going right now. Hey, look, the one in the middle is out of filament, and I need to go put filament in it. But the SV01 is actually pretty cool. Let me switch to this mode. Maybe you can see it. Yeah, I'm printing something really big on it right now. I spent the last week since I got it on Tuesday. I've been spending the last week tuning the printer. I can make myself big. Why am I not? Why
Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe, and I don't know how to run things on the internet. So yeah, I spent the last week tuning it to be able to print really large objects. Specifically, this object right here. So this was the first test run. Isn't that beautiful? Doesn't this look like an official product?
It looks like a mini 2SI.
Yep.
Our wonderful friend Gutbomb, Jason Merrill, designed this in coordination and cohort with Ron, our co-host, who could not be here tonight. So basically, this is the SE Mini, where you can put an SE and video converters and power supply and all of that in there. And I got this printer specifically so I could print these. So if people in the community wanted one of these and they want the full single piece instead of the quadrant piece, I could print those for them. So
I'll take it.
That's the thing. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, and so Steve wants this one that's all messed up and didn't print.
Because trust me, when I put a CRT on top of it, it'll get more warped. So it's okay.
Yeah,
crunch.
Don't do that. Don't do that, please. Please no.
Dear Gutbob,
I think he's saying he doesn't offer a warranty.
Yes.
You did not design it to put something there.
The next, the custom mix revision will have like a
put my
30-pound
profile
piece.
on my monitor and it broke.
Yeah,
Why?
put the profile in it to support the monitor.
Yeah, just and you can see this one has some quality problems. You can see here on the corner it bent down and stuff like that. So I spent the past week tuning it and getting it really schmick so that it can print right. This is in the cheaper Mac filament, the platinum that isn't quite right. But the one I'm printing right now, this guy right here, is in the true Color Frab RAL 7044 color matched filament. It's printing beautifully and it is sticking to the bed. It is not pulling up the corners. So I'm
Good.
really super hopeful that this thing is going to come out excellent, especially since each half takes 8.5 hours to print. It is a 17-hour print per case.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's a thing. But yeah, the other get that I wanted to hint at is, so do you know how I have a SpectraGen, a TechScan MSI SpectraGen 4G titler unit that allows one to, do weird text-based information system stuff on cable company stuff, on a cable channel, on public access? Yeah. I will answer your nods with the statement of eBay is evil.
I'm sensing a trend here.
And we're just going to move on from that. Anyway, so
is it getting
2
a
weeks from
sibling?
now, maybe we'll be talking about what that means.
You're going to be a big brother.
Yeah. Somebody, I mean, this goes back to preservation. The SpectraGen, the documentation on it is pretty good. Like the user manual is really good and goes into a lot of detail, but not enough. There is no technical documentation on exactly how it works. And the software that you can use to control these devices, talk to these devices, doesn't exist. The company that makes them still exists, but they don't want to talk to you. They're like, no, I don't want to. It's like one guy in a basement in Utah or something. He's like, I don't want to tap the tech support this thing, so I'm not going to give you the software. It's like, I don't want tech support. I just want to copy the software so that I can preserve it. No, he doesn't want to do that. So I'm reverse engineering the damn thing so we don't have to. We don't need your software anymore because I have a PowerShell script right now that can send live temperature and weather data to it, and it actually shows up on the unit.
That's so cool.
And of course, it's in PowerShell because I'm batshit crazy. Anyway, so yeah. So that's what's going on. Projects. What you working on? Any cool quick projects we want to talk about that we're digging into?
John?
Unfortunately, I can't show it because it's obviously on the bench right now. I'm one of the terrible individuals who use an Apple Vision 1710AV monitor as my regular Mac monitor. I know, right? And surprise, surprise, it's acting up. So, like, they're great monitors. I love, like, the whole integration of the ADB hub, like the ADB control. It's a Trinitron monitor. But it's that era of Michael Spindler era plastics that make them like you don't dare open them to service them.
Love it.
Yep.
So what's been happening is that like once it warms up, you'll get you'll get arcing somewhere inside, and like the picture loses geometry or color or something, it shuts down. And it's a Trinitron, so it could be any number of things, not limited to capacitors, of course. So I had to finally like say, okay, I'm gonna have to open the darn machine up. And like you look at it and like you have to unclip the front microphone and unclip like this here and this here. And like you go to release those clips, like the clips shatter on you immediately. So I'm at the point now where it is apart, but it was like place it down on a rag and a cloth on the table, grab the back of the monitor, take out the base screws and just lift and use the weight of the monitor to rip the back off of this thing in such a way it didn't shatter in my hands.
Oh. Yeah, good on you for trying.
CRT. Well, it'll go back together. I've done this once or twice before, so now I'm just trying to narrow down what it is inside
before you put it back together.
Well, I've done that once already, and I thought I had it because I was like, "Oh, hey, it's just this data cable is like touching the high voltage anode wire, and it's glitching out the deflection board." No, it wasn't that. Like you put it back together, you set it up again, and it's like click. Oh, there goes my color.
I have
colorful words I can't say.
Oh, you could say them. I have one of those in the garage that has issues, and I got it for like $1 or something because nobody wanted to take it home. So if for another friend of mine also has the same monitor is running into issues, so I have a feeling I'm gonna have to open it up. So I will ping you and get your expert advice of how to do it without harming it as much.
I have photographs of me taking it apart.
You're not supposed to use one of these.
Yeah, no,
that's there if you don't want it. If you don't want to put the back on, it just kind of dissolves.
Hit it with a hammer. Hit it with a hammer. Hit it with a hammer. We're gonna hit it with a hammer.
This kills the CRT.
Lies. Hit it harder with a hammer. especially without the implosion ring on it.
Oh God.
Joe's Computer Museum is not responsible for anyone's safety of.
Yeah.
I'm Everything Broken Garage wants me to tell you, John, that your website is down.
Yes. So CelGen.org hasn't actually had a website running on it now for 15 years. Unfortunately, that's just been an issue of me not running a website. But I'm paying for the domain, so I use that as an email redirect.
Okay.
Oh, nice. You should just put just put like a image of you going like on it.
Yeah.
Just like you found my website.
And
Yeah,
Here's
right
my
below it.
email.
Right below
Yeah.
it just says donate. You're like,
Yeah. Or you could do what I do, like hit it with a hammer.net, and it sends it to that video I just played.
I have a photograph somewhere of me like leaning over like inside of a computer and just like me throwing
Yes.
parts out, and it says technical difficulties underneath.
Yep.
Perfect.
that's perfect. I love it.
Yes.
That's
Awesome
funny.
sauce. Awesome sauce. We did. Yes. Who's next on What Are You Working On? Javier, you go next.
Okay. Well, I'm working on the GoTex now for the Apple II.
Boo! Garbage.
Hey. Yes, they are, but I'm trying to make them beautiful garbage.
Oh yeah, you're
So
doing.
they're going to be
3D.
nice and with
It's
little.
pretty.
See,
things
Javier,
that
we need
will-
to get you more light in that room so that your picture
Yeah,
doesn't
true.
show up like it's being looked at through like the leavings of a pizza on on a pan. Like it looks like cornmeal. Like we're
We're
looking
getting
through
a bit
corn.
fuzzy around
It
the
is.
edges there.
Well, I like it warm and fuzzy. What about that?
Well, oh, so we can't see the defects in your 3D prints. I got it. Understood.
That's what
I'm
there's a
kidding.
stocking over
Javier's
the
stuff is
camera.
freaking awesome. It's
what?
great.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. That's not the right connector on the end of that Lisa mouse. There's something going on here.
Well,
It's
if you
okay.
see this Lisa mouse.
I don't know what you could be talking about. I have no idea what you could be talking about.
There's a
I
3D
don't know.
printable version of the Lisa mouse? I only know that there's a Holly mouse 3D print available.
Well,
That's
this is from
wait a minute. Okay, you're blowing my mind here, by the way.
avidstuff.com makes an optical mouse for the Lisa.
Oh, just take my damn money, Javier.
It's an optical mouse, John. It's optical.
Yes.
Avid Stuff. Go there.
Wow.
Oh, it's getting a little hot in here. Oh my goodness.
That is amazing.
So this is the next thing that I'm putting out, and next week I'm gonna have the Amiga mouse also ready on the store.
So cool.
So that's what I've been.
Eric,
You're giving up my secrets. Shut up.
Makes him look 10 years younger.
it's like, hold on. It's like,
Anyway, that's what I've been working on. Other of the the good old
here. I'm gonna emulate Javier real quick. Okay.
right.
There.
Emulate me, yeah.
Here we go.
Hey, I'm a soft individual. Everything is soft here.
Suavemente.
Muy suave. I'm Rico and suave. So anyway,
Oh, man.
that's what I've been working on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool. Steve.
Fantastic.
I'm working on a mountain of videos that will never ever
I'm gonna
get
make
done.
you full size because you're Steve.
The hell no, don't do that.
I'm gonna zoom in on your
Zoom.
nose.
Yeah.
So Steve's working on videos as is.
Yeah.
Isn't that like how it kind of works for our dilemma? It's
Oh
either
yeah.
work on projects, work on videos, work on projects, work on videos.
Work on
This is
projects
why
that
I
turn into
stopped.
videos.
Double the duty.
Yes, I have. If you go to shop.mac84.net,
Yeah, you go to my
Hey, those serial ports are in the perfect position, Steve. They are
And
perfectly planted. Yeah.
Steve, did you see the apricot shirt that I was wearing during Midwest?
Yes. Oh my God.
I
that
had a
was great.
bunch of people asking me where to buy that, and I
Oh,
was kind of
man.
sad to say these are the only ones that exist.
Oh,
ABTs can make it for you.
there you go.
Yeah.
You could
Yes,
partner up with Javier.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you go to shop.mac84.net, I have my swag. But I am working on a video about like the basics of SCSI for anybody who's getting into Mac stuff, because that's like the number one question I always see is like, what's an ID number? What are these weird stupid cables? Why am I crying in the corner? So so
A
hopefully
sacrifice is required for the
yeah,
SCSI.
exactly. I'm running out of blood. Why is it not working?
Did you use the Black
Instructions
Terminator?
unclear, remove finger.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. I painted the Terminator black. Why isn't it working better? My Mac 2 effects is still sad. I need more cheetah blood, you know. So yeah, that I oh gosh, I filmed that I think back in August. So trying to get that done. But yeah, that's the sad part
Latest.
when you use like a teleprompter and then you write things poorly. So you realize like after the fact, like, oh, I said the wrong thing. Let me just go back and I have to set up the whole desk again. So if the video ends up being like a very nicely shot video, and then it just intercuts to like this view being like Scuzzy ID 7. Now you know why.
Oh boy.
Joe. And then last and finally, the absolute least. I just randomly remembered that I still have Steve's Halo, by the way. So Steve, I still have. And I got a new one. I got a new Halo from Steve. He sent me.
I sent
They're
Joe
tiny 0403 or 0406 or whatever. 0 ohm resistor links.
Oh, his is actually
useful. Wires, basically. Anyway, so what am I working on? The big project, I think, because I'm working on a billion things at once. There's a ton of new products in the store. I won't dig into that too much. I've got a bunch of reverse engineering projects. I've got the Diamond Trackstar I'm working. This is all stuff everybody knows about. I talk about this every 2 weeks, like ad infinitum. But the cool thing that I started working on and have been tinkering around with for the past month or so is my Apple Lisa 2/5. John Leake, we saw him for the first time on Dave's stream today, which was really cool. Hi, John. How you doing? He gave that to me at Kansas Fest 2023. I don't know why, but I am eternally thankful because it's a freaking Lisa 2/5. Destroyed, battery bombed, all of that. I got it up and running last week or the week before. It was up and running and booting into the operating system. I had recapped everything in the machine. I had to replace both the back, what's called the motherboard in the thing, the bottom main plain board and the primary logic board, the IO board, because of the battery bomb. I had to completely rebuild those using the freely available PCBs that are out on GitHub. Got all that working. But I went to plug in, I was finally ready to get it to boot. And I went to plug in my replacement profile. I have a profile emulator. I plugged it in, and the machine wouldn't turn on. It went, and smoke started coming out of it. I did it live. I was on a live stream or on a video chat. And I took the power supply back apart and found a busted diode. Replaced the diode, and now it won't turn it on at all. So there is a third-party kit that you can use with a PCB and some extra parts to build a replacement power supply, because mine has the less good 1.2 amp supply in it. So this is going to basically make it all the amps forever power supply it could ever take. And we're going to put that in it, and hopefully that fixes the problem. And it's not when the other supply went out, it busted things. I'm hoping it didn't, send 120 volts to, the chips.
No,
Upside is there's only one chip on it on the Lisa 2.5 that you can't get, and that's the COP 421. But there's you can get a COP 420 and a daughter board too. It just changes the pin out and makes it work. So we'll see. We will see. We'll see what happens.
Oh my god,
yep, that's it.
Nope.
Cool. Well, this has been a super awesome, good show. It has been really fun. I'm sorry that we didn't have Ron and Trina here, but I am grateful that we had Steve to fill in tonight. And of course, our wonderful guest here, John. John, why don't you take a moment to tell everybody where they can find you and what is going on in your world?
Well, if you wish to find me online as a video presence, I do have my YouTube channel, CelGenStudios. What I try and do is release a video once every 2 weeks. Sometimes that changes. Sometimes I add just stupid little videos in the middle of the week, and you'll see them show up in the feed. Sometimes you just have to check back, and maybe there's a new secret video that showed up.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you ever need to reach me, I do have an email address specifically for the channel, cgs_info@celgen.org. And you can ask me questions through that, and I can usually respond to that. But when I'm working on my projects, or if I'm traveling, or if there's updates or news like this stream here, you can find me on X at the handle CelGenStudios. No spaces in there.
Cool. Awesome.
Hold on, let me type that down. CelGenStudios, no spaces in there.
Subscribe.
Steve.
That's all I can say.
Sorry, I had to make the dumb.
That's all right. No. I've had a couple of weird ones before where it's just like, is that CGS no spaces info, or is it Cel_Gen_Studios? No, it's all one word. It's kind of like we all had terrible email handles back in like the early 2000s that we don't want to admit about.
AOL, Hotmail,
MSN, Hotmail.
So you're not the CelGenStudios 123 with the bikini model in your picture. Okay.
No,
Wrong
I'm also
person.
not CelGenStudios.
Oh.
Oh boy.
Yes. Awesome. Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing more from you in the. I will be watching your career with great interest.
Thank you very much.
Javier, where can people find you, sir?
8bitstuff.com is a new one, please, guys. And of course, 8bit Tees, where you can get cool t-shirts like this.
Oh, I'm glad he has his pants on this time. Oh.
Oh, me too. Not as cool as Joe's or Steve's t-shirts, but these are nice. You know, okay, possible.
I think Javier's shirts are really good.
Go to 8bitthongs.net.
No. What
Not
about
again?
you?
Not again.
Not again.
But again, the new 3D stuff that I'm making, you know, cool stuff
Yes.
for your old computers.
Please help Javier out. He's doing a big push to get into these new products, and he really needs your help in not only in, I don't know, buying them, but also telling your nerd friends.
Tell your
that his
friends,
products
these
out
are
there. So
difficult to
tell
find.
everybody.
Now you're going to be able to buy them, and you're going to be able to use them with your beautiful old Lisas without risking or paying $750 for it. So
Yes. By the way, thank you, Javier.
you got it. Yeah, you can use it and you can show it off when your Lisa works.
Yeah, I hope it works. Anyway,
I'm gonna steal.
it was your
Joe's
mouse
'cause
that broke my lead. No, I'm kidding. Javier, does the mouse come with a Lisa? No.
Yeah, right.
Free Lisa with every mouse.
Yeah,
That was-
exactly.
Yeah, it's called go to the GitHub page and download the PCBs and make your own Lisa and have a nice day. Which you can do. There's only one chip that you can't get. That's that COP 421. You replace it with a COP 420 and a daughter board, and it's a Lisa. It's great. Anyway, Steve,
I was
where can
gonna
people
say,
find you, sir?
Lisa only takes 7 to 8 years for delivery and handling and putting together. I'm Steve. You can find me on Mac84.net and on the YouTube on Mac84. I do videos occasionally and stuff, and I'm here today. So yay!
Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you again, Steve, for being a willing participant in our madness 20 minutes before we went live. I appreciate that.
Thank you for the check clearing.
Yes. Yeah. Shh, quiet.
Wait, you get residuals for this?
Yeah. What? Huh? What? I don't know what he's talking about.
He's a goner.
Joe pays me in these.
Yeah. I told Steve, I haven't shipped your box yet. I can put this in the box. And I'll tell you what, this is one of the stinkiest mugs you have ever seen in your life.
Dear Mac84, your package has been detained due to smell.
Yeah.
It was flagged. It was flagged by our drug sniffing dogs. So shh. So anyway, yes. Thank you, Steve. Mac84.net and Mac84 on YouTube. And finally, and again, least, it's Joe. Hi, I'm Joe, Joe's Computer Videos. You can follow me at my website, jcm-1.com, where you can get in contact with my YouTube page, which I don't do much but streaming anymore. I'm mostly just on this channel now and hanging out with other people. You can also check out all my social media outlets that are there. I'm on Twitter. I am going to call it Twitter until the site dies. I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky and Mastodon and Threads. I'm all over that place, so you can find me there. And also, if you want cool old stuff to keep your other cool old stuff working, like Blue Scuzzies or keyboard encoders or just like literally every upgrade for the Apple III that was ever made. If you want all of that stuff, you can go to jcm-1.com.
All two of them.
Things. Yes,
Yep,
you know,
amazing.
hey, somebody's got to keep these old machines running. That's all I
Love
gotta
you,
say.
Joe.
So, it's a cool show tonight. Thank you everybody for stopping by. Real quick housekeeping before we leave. Number one, remember to lasso that like button and spur that subscribe button. It helps the YouTube algorithm point us out to other cool nerds like yourselves who might enjoy the show, and it really does help. And finally, let's say one last thing. Our next show, which is going to be on November 3rd. Our next guest is going to be Jeremy Parrish from Retronauts, who's done the NES Works, Game Boy Works, and Genesis Works video documentary series. Super, super cool that we're going to be able to talk to Jeremy. So we look forward to seeing you on November 3rd. And with that, that's the end of the show. Thanks to everybody for stopping by. Thanks, John,
Thanks,
again, for being
John.
our guest. Steve.
Not a problem at all.
Crazy. And yeah, that's it. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.